Hi, my name is Stephanie Joy Phillips. I'm the founder of World Childless Week, and I'm here joined by two amazing ladies who I think are going to get straight into the conversation without a worry. The webinar tonight is, I'm going to read it to get it right. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice again. If I'm lucky to not have kids, does that mean as a parent, you were lucky? Unlucky, that's the one. Gosh, I told you I'm tired. But yeah, if we're lucky to not have kids, are you unlucky to then have kids? It's twisting the whole statement around. But before we go into it, I'm just going to switch to the other two and say, Bibi, would you like to do a little introduction of yourself, please?
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for asking me to join in, Steph. My name is Bibi Lynch and I'm a journalist and writer and broadcaster. I've written a lot. I don't have children. I'm what they call socially infertile, which is the least sexy thing you could ever say about anyone, isn't it? And obviously it's on my Twitter, on my Tinder. I've written a lot about the childless experience. And I'm up for the Guardian, Across the Board, Telegraph, and maybe something in the Independent tomorrow that I've written as well. And it's a really weird thing to write about your experience because it's the most personal thing and most painful thing that's ever happened to me. And yet I'm talking about it, and I don't quite know if I've ever done that because it's part of my process, or why. I certainly didn't do it for an altruistic way, but what a nice thing is, as you were saying, Julia, before we kind of got into the chat, talking about these things normalizes them and brings them out into the wild and makes us feel that, oh yeah, what we're saying is valid and we're allowed to say it. So, and I get really lovely messages still from features I've written 10 years ago about this kind of stuff. So I'm really happy to be here. I'm a bit potty mouthed, don't judge me. I'm sorry already, but it's really great to be here and I hope I can contribute in some good way.
I am sure you will. I have no doubts whatsoever. Julie, would you like to do the same?
Thank you, Steph. So yeah, thank you for asking me to take part. It's really exciting to be here and also just to see everyone coming in from around the world as well, which is fantastic. But so my name is Julie Angelis, and I'm from London. I am socially infertile as well. I feel like I'm at a meeting. Yeah, but childless by circumstance, socially infertile, whichever it is. That's me as well. And so I'm a life coach and a trauma therapist as well. And I suppose I kind of found I don't know if there's a specific term for it, but coming out about childlessness, I suppose for me, just thinking about what Bibi was saying as well, I think for me it was probably lockdown. So in my work doing kind of trauma therapy and things, I never really talked about childlessness, and that was a personal choice because I found it, difficult. But then it got to lockdown, as I'm sure many of us realised that was a bit of an experience, and the good and the bad. But then I just thought, oh, I can't keep quiet about this anymore. Oh no! So then I kind of became very vocal about it, and yeah, haven't looked back. So there we go. That's me. So I think the majority of my work and just generally what I do, I suppose, is with the childless community. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you. I'm going to delve right straight into it and say, okay, so if somebody comes up to you and says, you're so lucky to not have kids, how do you feel? How do you react? And what do you say? And I'm open to either of you to start off, but if nobody knows which to go first, then I should pick one of you.
Pick us.
Oh, can I say something just came straight to mind that just
Yes.
following on from what I was saying, I think for me it first came up, I think, in lockdown. So I'd heard that, for years, but I think when it really struck me when I became aware about kind of how ridiculous that statement is really is in lockdown, because so many people said, oh, well, at least you're not at home with the kids. At least you don't have kids. Oh, so lucky to not have kids. Oh, imagine if you had to do homeschooling. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of the point, right? Like I'm at home on my own with no kids, and not to invalidate, because that must have been really hard for parents as well. But I think that's when it first for me came to mind. And then just to say, what do you say? I think there's two things here, because one is, I think it depends how you're feeling, or for me, it depends how you're feeling, because you can either be like, well, you're so lucky to not have to worry about not having kids. And you can go into this whole thing and just kind of turn it around. But then I think, you know, as childless people, then we get perceived as, you know, being bitter, the bitter childless woman stereotype, as people like to kind of say. And I think now what I do is I just very gently and keep it quite brief and just say, well, you know, and I'll just be honest, and I'll just be like, well, actually, I wanted to have kids, so yeah, you know, I have nice weekends every now and then, but, and I just kind of, I'm just honest with it, but blunt, and then I just leave it, just to kind of, you know, I don't know. What about you, Booby?
Oh my God, already I'm getting that anxious feeling in my chest.
Yeah.
it riles me so much. There's so much you said. The whole thing about COVID, little Rona brought out the worst in people in every way. And one of the things that killed me about it were those tweets about, you know, oh, if I hear one more person moan about, you know, being at home without, you know, during lockdown, it's like, yeah, all right, sweetheart. I'm sure homeschooling was a bloody nightmare. I'm sure it was absolutely hideous. But you've also got your beautiful child, possibly loving the family. I was on my own, totally on my own. Now, you're not allowed to have an equally awful experience. My experience wasn't the same as their experience. That would have been awful. But so was mine. And that's what annoys me about the whole childless thing. You can't, childless thing. And you're totally right, the whole that perception of you being bitter. We're kind of fighting back the whole time. I don't want to fight back. I want someone to use their brains. When someone says, you know, oh, you know, I've never loved like this before and I'm so blessed, but you're so lucky you don't have children. That feels like a conversational pity shag. That feels like they're just throwing something in to kind of make you feel a little bit better. It's infuriating. Yes, their problems during COVID, for instance, were finite. Okay, if you wanted children and maybe you don't see a brilliant trauma counselor like you, that can feel like that's forever, that feeling around it. And I was talking to our amazing Jodie Day earlier today, actually, from Gateway Women. You all know her. She's just fucking extraordinarily brilliant. And we were talking about how I find it infuriating that we're always seen as the problem. We're seen as the people that are causing divide. We're not causing divide. I've been accused of being a misogynist for writing about my experience, because I've been told that I've shut down parents' experience, that I don't let every woman have a voice. Childless women don't have a voice. Childless men don't have a voice. You know, so by me having my say, I'm not attacking. I'm leveling it up, as our government really wants us to do. I'm leveling up. If something's going to be said to me, they have the mother rhetoric. If anything like that's going to be said to me, I'm going to go, no. So in answer to your question, I'm off on one already, I'm so sorry. But that whole thing of like, what do I say? I'll say something. If someone said to me, you're lucky you don't have children, I go, not really how I see it. I had an ex-friend, I will shut up in a minute. I had an ex-friend on Facebook, and he's ex now, because he made the mind-blowing assertion that if you don't have children, you don't have to get out of bed. There's a level of idiocy around it. And I don't know what that is, because 20 years ago, no one was writing about this. Then, like you said, Julie, maybe people didn't get it. They didn't understand it. Well, now, when people have been talking about it and writing about it 10 years plus, if they're not getting it now, they're not hearing it now, they're choosing not to listen, is my feeling. I'll have a drink now.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, no, I think it's true, because as you said, it's always pushing the negatives onto us, no matter what the situation is, no matter the scenario. It's not giving a balanced opinion, because we know it's not easy being a parent.
Yeah,
we know it's not all sweetness and light and rose tinted glasses. Do you know what I mean? That's not what we're looking through. We can see that being a parent is bloody hard.
Yeah.
And we just want people to realize, don't think we've got everything so bloody fantastic.
It's bloody hard, but it's also bloody glorious. That's why people have more than one child. And it's also, as we're being told the whole time, we've never known love like it. And it's the most fulfilling thing on earth. Well, if it's that, I'd put up with some of the shit.
Yeah.
If it is that, I would put up with some of the crap.
It's the balance of the two statements, isn't it? You
It's
don't
the balance of
true
two
love,
statements.
but then telling us we're also the luckiest. We can't not have true love. You can't tell us that it's really
Thank
awful
you.
to not have
Yeah, I feel blessed.
Yeah, and then at the same time turn around and go, you're so damn lucky.
Yeah.
And it's like, in some aspects, some of us might say now that we're lucky, that perhaps some of us can have that lie-in, but not everybody can. Some of us might be able to afford to go on holiday. Some of us are probably more broke than you if we spent money on fertility treatments.
Well, if you're single and
Yeah.
trying to live in London, for instance, that's a single person's rent. If you're renting, that's, what is it, 2,500 is the average now? I mean, seriously? You know, most couples are, you know, even the practical stuff of that, it's more expensive. So actually, we probably haven't got the money to go away. We don't get the deals. We get the, what's the thing in hotels called? The kind of single person.
Oh, surcharges. And
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. Single person get kind of get nacked for that as well.
You know, I actually just came to mind about, it's not only the fact of what, you know, people will say it, but it's just the flippant way that it's said. Oh, at least you don't have kids. And it kind of, so I think what happens then is that when we try like speak up for ourselves, especially if you've kind of found your voice around it and you're like, right. But for them, it feels like it's such an overreaction because they've only made a little comment. And I saw someone mentioned in the chat about, you know, then you're accused of being oversensitive. And then it comes up that they think because they think they've just made this little comment and you've like blown up. But the whole point is it's such a huge thing to just give a flippant comment. Like, I remember I went for a pedicure, which I hardly ever go for, but I thought, you know, I'm going to treat myself. And it was a few years ago in the midst of, you know, dealing with all this crap, let's say. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to switch off, I'm just going to have pedicure and treat myself, you know. And the therapist started talking about her kids. So I knew, oh, it's going to come, it's coming soon. You know, I knew it was coming and I just thought, oh God, quickly just finish it. You know, I just knew it was coming and I was like, And and then it came up and I just thought, well, I haven't mentioned it for 20 minutes. So either the reason I haven't mentioned I've got kids is either because I don't have them or I've got them, but I don't want to talk about them because generally that person would have, you know, you would have said something and I hadn't said anything, but she was pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And then she said, so do you have kids? And I just said, no, I don't actually. And so she immediately went, oh, well, aren't you lucky? You know, enjoy your freedom while you're young. And I said, well, actually, I said, I'm 50 in a couple of years and I've known I can't have kids for a very long time. And but I have to say that she was actually mortified. And she actually said, oh God, I'm really sorry. Like to her, it was just like, but a lot of people wouldn't take it like that. And then she said, which I thought was quite sweet, she was really, you know, she was kind of digging a hole, but she kind of said, do you have any pets? And I said, well, I've got 2 cats. And she went, well, she said, cats are really hard work too. And I said, yes, they are, aren't they? And I thought, thank God it's nearly the end of my pedicure.
And you said she was digging deep. I thought she meant with a little kind of nail thing into your into your soul.
That as well.
Soul, not
That's
your heart soul.
But I just thought, yeah, it's the flippant way that it's said as well, just like in passing. So it doesn't even sometimes give us a chance to respond how we would want to.
Do you remember the poor Jen head tilt? So the poor Jen thing. So I used to work in women's magazines, and Jennifer Aniston would often be called poor Jen because she didn't have children. She had various relationships that were, you know, up and down and didn't have children, and it'd be like that. The poor Jen. And so now, if someone says you have children, you go, no, you get that. You know, don't ask such a deeply personal question that's inappropriate, that's nothing to do with where we're at or what we're doing, if you can't set your face or have the relevant answer. Shut up.
Basically.
Yeah. Or be prepared to have an answer back.
Be prepared.
Yeah. Or
I've been asked that question. And so I've been asked that question in a work meeting.
Oh God.
Yeah. And I went, no. I just thought, I'm not going to fill the space.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you feel as awkward as you've just made me feel. Because it shouldn't be a conversation starter.
No.
Did you have breakfast is a conversation starter?
Yeah. What are you doing at the weekend?
Yeah.
What book are you reading? What programs have you seen on TV? Yeah.
So many other things. So many
literally anything else, right?
Yeah. Because as you say, if someone's got kids, it will come out naturally in the conversation. It doesn't have to be the headline act.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah.
And then if it's a sideline, it comes down the conversation, it's easier to generally move away from it because it's not the one single focus point of conversation that they're centre on. Do you know what I
Wouldn't
mean?
you, as a parent, not want the fact that your parents be the only thing about you that's worth talking about?
But again, don't you think a lot of that is because there is so much pushing now, especially on social media, that you've got to be the perfect parent? So I think they have that pressure applied to them as well. So it's almost like they can be combating against each other and competing to be the best at doing this, that, and the other. So it's almost, do you know what I mean? There's so much competition to push a parent to being the best that I think sometimes they'll say things that maybe they don't always believe about themselves, possibly. And
Again, social media has been around long enough now that if your brain is making you still be competitive because of social media, you need to look at your brain. With the ultimate respect.
Yeah.
With no respect, but with utmost respect. It's like I've said, if people like us are writing and talking about this for 10 years plus, and other people who are parents are still not hearing it, they're choosing to. It's serving them in some way. And if you're on social media and you're still being like effectively online bullied into thinking things or saying things or presenting yourself in a way you don't want to, grow up. You know, it's not new now.
No, it's not.
But this is what we've always said about, you know, our brilliant Jodie on pronatalism and worshipping at the altar of motherhood. There's always been, it serves no one, because if parents think they have to find being parents and their children the most incredible experience ever, and they don't, that's going to freak them out. And they kind of put that on us. I feel like we're the whipping boy a little bit for stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I also think something else that comes into my mind, because I've obviously thought about this extensively over the years, as we all have to some degree, but something that I think about, I think, you know, those people that invalidate that experience, or they, whatever it is, you know, there's a lot of projection going on, isn't there? So there's a lot of like, oh, you're so lucky to have kids, and it's actually nothing to do with us. It is all to do with them, about how stressed they feel.
Yeah.
And in that moment, they're like, oh, you know, whatever. But yeah, I mean, yes, I am lucky on a Friday night because I can go out and have a drink. I don't have to wake up. Whatever it is, it's temporary. It's not like a permanent thing. But a lot of it is projection. And I something that I do wonder is that those people that say those things, are they invalidating about everything else as well? Because that is something that I think about, and I try and reframe it a bit. And I think, well, they've said that, but would they also say that about a whole load of other stuff as well? Like, it's not, because I think as well, when you go through this, especially when you don't know that there's other people that feel like this, sometimes this experience can be quite lonely, right? Because you're just like, oh, is it just me that's thinking that? And I think, do these people, it's obviously nothing personal, but would they just say that about anything and everything to anyone? They're literally just invalidating insensitive people. So whether it's childlessness or whether it's something else, it's the same response for them. They just don't get it. It's not necessarily always that it is just about childlessness, which means there's a lot of insensitive people in the world, I know. But
or is it because they're constantly talking to other parents, they don't get the chance to have that outburst? So when they do, it's a sudden rush of all these negatives or aimed at us that are so got no validity to them.
When I first time I wrote about this, I wrote a piece in Grazia, and their headline was "Have I missed the baby boat?" And it was like, you know, will I have children? I don't know if I will. Blah blah blah. The first really big piece I wrote about it was in the Guardian, and I think it was 2012. And the headline they gave it was "Mothers Stop Moaning." I didn't give it that headline. It was a really fierce piece, and I still stand by every word of it. The only word I don't stand by is I describe myself as bitter, and I've thoroughly regret using that word about myself, because it was such a lazy, cliched response to myself, downplaying myself, because I don't think I am bitter. I think I'm angry. It's a difference there. And also men are never called bitter, but we don't need to do that. But what shook me, and this piece was so huge, it went around the world. I did like masses on it. And there was even a feature about the feature the week after, because it caused such an impact. And what blew my mind about it was the same 2,000 words elicited such different responses. because everyone brings their own stuff to it. Everyone was reading it from their point of view, childless, child-free, and parents. Everyone was doing it in a different way. So you're right, Julie. Everyone, they're bringing their own stuff. What they're saying is exactly right. It's about them. Whatever they're saying, it's about them. And I guess when I push back so hard, that's about me, because I don't. One of my things is I hate being misrepresented. So I pitched something recently, and I was pitching a feature about saying where I'm at now about the whole childless situation. And in one aspect, I obviously haven't mellowed, but there was one bit that I would describe as finding one kind of droplet of joy in this shitty puddle, shitty ocean, let's be honest. And the brief I got back was from someone I really like and really respect and really do like. But she kind of wanted me to write a retraction about everything else I'd ever said. And there were some things along the lines of, so do you now see it from the mother's point of view? Oh my God, I was apoplectic. And I was so angry, because it's like, just because I'm saying a positive thing that I've had to find through all this shit doesn't mean the rest of it doesn't happen. You're totally negating my experience and the experience of everyone else that responded to it, and the experience of the people that messaged me with saying thank you for saying this. Because this is the thing as well, often when these things are talked about, they're done in such an anodyne way because no one wants to offend parents. Because once again, you're put up as someone, I did a panel and one of the panelists said, I don't think you're creating a them and us. I was like, I'm not. If someone says as a mother to me, I'm going to go back and go, what is the point of saying something so stupid like that? Because what you're just saying is, as a mother, your feelings mean more. You care more, you love more, you're more compassionate than I am. You are more than me, I'm less than you. If you said that, if you use the word as a heterosexual, as a white woman, well, there's a word for people like that, isn't there? But as a mother's okay. Oh my God, it makes me so mad.
Yeah, it makes me mad too. I feel like we could be on here for another 5 hours talking about it. I suppose the projection thing as well. I think we have a double whammy as childless women, because people who are, and also just not to invalidate that, there are people who are very ambivalent as well, or there are people at different stages in their life who go between childless, child-free. Sometimes it's not clear cut, but what I found is, and I might be wrong, but what I found is generally, a lot of people are pretty much one or the other. And then there is some in the middle as well. Sometimes, at the weekend, I think, oh, maybe I am child-free, but no, because ultimately, anyway, that's another discussion. But I think what our thing is as well, when people make those comments, a lot of people haven't found their voice yet. Childlessness, there's such a kind of stigma or shame or trauma or grief around it. It's such a difficult thing to speak up about. And especially if you are not able to put your feelings into words, you actually don't know how to speak up about it. So when someone then says, oh, count yourself lucky, or whatever stupid stuff they say, you might end up just being quiet. So it kind of reinforces the thing, you go through that whole process of, I don't know how to answer. I feel upset because I'm invalidated.
Shuts you down.
I also feel guilty because, you know what, maybe I am lucky and I don't have those issues, because maybe you don't, maybe you invalidate yourself as well from the difficulties, the challenges you have, and you don't know how to speak up. So then it's just, there's so many layers to it as well. It's not just as easy as speaking up. And then if you do speak up, and then it's like, oh God, you need to come to terms with that. You need to get into the real world, or you're oversensitive, or whatever it is. So I just feel like a lot of the time, whatever we say, we can't win, because, and it's about finding that balance and maybe working on what am I going to say? Being prepared as well, I think, maybe sometimes for these situations.
I think this is so interesting what you're saying. How do you move on from this though? Because two female friends of mine, both childless, both at separate times, were talking. Say there was a child, with their parent crossing the road, and they were a cute kid, and one of my friends, again, these are two separate instances, would see the child and go, oh, look at that kid, and they look at me and go, oh God, sorry, I forgot you don't like children. And I'd be like, oh my God, I love children. Therein lies the problem. Therein lies the grief of me not having children. I love children. Children love me. I love them. They look at me and I oh God, I TikTok children the whole time. I need to kind of move my head away from that. I think they're fucking gorgeous at every stage in their lives, and I just think they're magical and brilliant. Why have these fellow childless women? How have they got there? How have they got there? How are they shutting me down? How are they? I mean, what is that? What is what is that, Julie?
I don't know, but it's interesting you say that, because I think some of that might be projection as well. Because I've had friends in the past. Apologies if anyone's watching this. They're like, is that me? No, it's nothing detrimental. Just a general statement. I've had friends in the past where, and I think maybe some other people can relate to this, but you feel like you're kind of on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
You might go through a time together when things have not worked out, you're childless, and you might not speak to this person for a while, or something might happen, and then they might make a comment, and you're like, what? But I thought you were, are you not? What? And that's, yeah, and you can feel a bit betrayed, or a bit like, oh, and I think that sometimes, and actually I did have a friend, and anyway, I won't go into that, but I think some of that might be projection as well, where, we all have such a different journey, similarities but differences at different times of our lives, that maybe sometimes people are denying it as well, maybe, or maybe that's a projection as well from.
So what do we do with it? How do we move forward? Because if like Steph, your World Childless Week is incredible, and what you do is just so brilliant and important, and so sensitively and beautifully done. So thank you. My depression around this is I don't feel I've seen any change. I don't feel. I posted something the other day about that Guardian piece, and I said, it's, what makes me mad is I don't think there's been much change. And someone came in, and she was quite right. She just went, "Much change? There's been no change." And I said, "Yeah, I think I was being generous. The change I see is people that are very close to me, my friends, check themselves and wouldn't use the language they may have used before, because they have realised we've explained it, and they've gone." Yes. Oh my God. Can't believe I didn't see that or think of that before. But then everyone else seems to, and they've been party to the same information. They've had the same access. They've heard and read the same stuff, and they are still choosing to not move with that. So, when I wrote those features before and I had all these different people's reactions, I did always think as well, is it because the pieces, these raw, brutal pieces, are inadvertently shining a light on their actual situation and their unhappiness possibly within? So again, it's the projection is, do you think there's truth in that?
It's hard, isn't it? Because like you say, but it's like, how? I think I've been lucky in that I've had the connections and spoke out to people who are close to me. I think starting on social media, I didn't have like thousands of friends. I had quite a tight-knit amount of friends and family. And I think perhaps maybe because they were close to me, they actually sat back and listened, and they might not have reacted straight away, but because they cared for me, they took their time to actually slowly, bit by bit, take on pieces of what I'm saying. And it's like you say, if you try and go to a wider audience, then they're just free for all, because they're just a name or a blank face behind a keyboard, and they can say what the hell they like. And it's about choice, like you say, whether they just choose to stick within their limitations and their own little barrier of security, and not really give a shit for anybody else, and not be interested in widening their knowledge and their empathy, whereas other people are closer perhaps do. So it's like, I think it's down to choice a lot of the time.
What would make people change? What would make the masses change?
I think in a way, what was good, because like I'm going to go back to last night when I picked up the award. So I was on stage in front of 150 people, and they had no choice but to listen to me, and they couldn't answer back. Do you know what I mean? And I think perhaps it's that, because on social media, people can answer back and say what they like. But maybe when we actually manage to get creative space somewhere, there's silence. They've got no choice to listen, and then perhaps they might have a little chip going away at their original thoughts towards the childless and what it's like, and hear us. But as you say, I don't think 10 years is enough. I actually see it and think of, compare it to other groups within society that are slowly being heard. It takes a couple of decades, and I think, yes, we're speaking that, and it's all of a sudden we seem to be getting a lot more focal, but it's still going to take, I think we're on that cusp of doing
Do
something,
you?
getting
I
to
hope
see
so.
more. I think so. But again, I don't see it suddenly all of a sudden tomorrow or the next week or next year we're going to be in every conversation.
I think you need to
Really.
say to everyone what you want in case
Yeah.
people don't know.
I'm
What,
very much like, if I speak to someone and somebody says to me, "Oh, you're so lucky," I'll just tell them now. But I bite my tongue with not the nastiness. And I literally sat on a train with somebody for 2 hours because she said the same. An old lady, she said, "Oh, you're so lucky." And I went, "Actually, I'm not." And I
yeah,
think she was taken back.
yeah.
But it ended up that she moved next to me on the train and we sat together discussing things. And she was on the way to see her new grandchildren, all this lot. And she was like, "Thank you so much for explaining." She was seeing a completely different side of things. Like I said, it was having that time and that space with her. But
Which
we
is
can't do that
amazing.
with everybody. And that's
You can't do
really
that with
hard.
everybody, but and that is amazing and lovely. But it does blow my mind that no one's ever thought of it. It does blow my mind that if you get to an adult stage and you can cross a road safely on your own, you don't know that this might be the situation. Steph, say to people what your award was. Explain what you won.
Oh my God. I was nominated and put up for the BBC Hereford and Worcester Make a Difference Together Award. And the Together is about being community and starting something. So yeah, it is bloody amazing. I'll go cry in a minute. I'm so
Oh,
it's the end of the week.
sweetheart.
You know what I'm like? I cry and everything. I cried last night. But yeah, I feel very honoured to actually say that we got heard.
Yeah.
So many people came up to me last night and said they were amazed by it. But what's wonderful as well, like I said, because it is about being heard, and that's what these conversations are about, is being heard.
And everyone's saying here in the chat how brilliant.
Oh, don't you'll get. I told you that told me because I'm knackered today already, and the tears are on the edge. Now I'm gone. That's it.
You know what is lovely? What do you think about this, Julie? I saw my friend Shelley recently. I love my Shelley, and she was saying that she pulls people up if they say stuff. Now Shelley's got children, and so like, from stuff I've said and stuff I've read, and my friend Helen the same. They do it. They're both brilliant. They both of them have got really fantastic children, and Ella, Shelley's daughter, was with us and her son Tom. But we were having a conversation between Ellie and Shelley and Ella and I. And Ella said, "Oh, yeah, yeah." And Ella repeated something. And I said, "Really? You get it?" She went, "Yeah, I tell people." So the younger generation, it was just incredible.
Yeah.
She listens to what we say.
That's where you've hit the nail on the head, I think, because the changes need to happen at school, primary school ages, where you grow up knowing you could be a parent, you could be childless, you could be child free. So the conversation is never a problem. And the conversation, if you say your mum, you go, "No, I'm child free," they understand, or childless, and it's a three-way discussion. But as you say, it's the younger generation that are much more open-minded because the world has changed so much. And that's where the change will happen, not necessarily in our generation. Do you know what I mean? There's that divide, and that's why you say, why can they not change after 10 years? Because they're still stuck in their own world. And if they see a headline of a piece in the paper that you've written, they might just go, "Oh, I'm not interested in that. What a load of baloney."
Oh my God. Yeah. This is why as well, like, I don't know if there's any script writers or authors out there, because something I feel, I'm sure a lot of us do, really passionate and annoyed about. And yes, I do have a TikTok account. Went onto that in lockdown and I was like, "Oh, this is my spiritual home." Love it. I think the difference with that is that you reach people that don't follow you. So people kind of, and as long as you don't end up on the wrong side of it and then get trolled. What was I going to say? But I posted something on there. It was really interesting. So I don't know if anyone's seen it, but there's a cartoon. Not that we would be watching children's programs, but something that I discovered was there's a cartoon called Bluey, which is about a little dog. I don't know. But anyway, in this cartoon, there's a mum, there's a mum with her kids and whatever. They're all dogs. But there's an episode, I posted it got something ridiculous, like 1 million views. I was like, "Oh God, I'm definitely public now about this." But I posted the snippets of it because it was, I don't know, so I might get this wrong, but Bluey's mum, I don't know. Anyway, the mum dog had her sister come to visit, okay? And the sister's childless not by choice. And so the mum dog, because this is all in a cartoon, so the mum dog gets there and she hasn't visited them for years. And the mum dog is like, "Oh, you haven't been here for years." And she's like, "Well, it's just really difficult, you know." And I just thought, how is it But you know, we face all this stigma and stuff, but in a cartoon, they got it so right. But for things to change, we need things at that level. We need cartoons, we need fairy tales, we need childless
Yeah.
heroines, we need, you know, I don't know if anyone works from home. I work from home and I punish myself with this, but now it's almost become like, right, I'm going to see what they're saying today. There's two programs which I just cannot, right? One is Loose Women, right? And I was like, borderline about to tag them in a million posts because they've won awards for inclusivity and being really inclusive and stuff like that. And I'm like, when have you ever mentioned? Do you even know it's World Childless Week? Have you mentioned it? You know, that's one thing, but I have it on in the background. And then the other thing is at Channel 5 film, and the film is always about, you know, the lady next door who doesn't have kids and is like the kidnapper and tries to have an affair with the husband. I mean, it's almost like laughable because you're like, oh, I know what this is going to be.
Mm.
But until those things start changing,
Yeah.
because we're getting all these messages every day. But until we, I don't know, is there a way to set up? And maybe this has been set up. I'm sure it has.
I'm pitching something right now.
Oh, you're good. You know,
Yeah. If you need support us, we are all here.
we're all
Just tell them.
Yeah, I'm
But
pitching right now.
even in schools, though, even teaching biology class, you know, I mean, I went and did some studying, and it was about psychology and the lifespan. And I thought, oh, I already know it's coming, but I'm just going to wait. Maybe I'll get proved wrong. And it wasn't. It was about, you know, going through the different stages, and then you have kids. And I'm like, And then I think there's one slide about infertility, men and infertility, and I thought, well, that's great, they've put that in, and then there was nothing. And I thought, you know, if this isn't on curriculums,
Yeah,
it's not at university level, it's not at primary school level, it's nowhere. How can then things actually change? So yeah.
I think as well, I'm not going to name the presenter, although I have in the feature that may be out, maybe or may not be out in the Independent tomorrow. I don't know. I can't talk about it. But there's something as well about high-profile women could change this conversation, and a lot choose not to. So a lot will. It makes me furious. So they'll talk about menopause, but childlessness, you know, that doesn't get a look in. And a well-known presenter said the "as a mother" expression, and that's why I just went off on a rant on it in the indie. But within the indie piece, I talk about an introduction to a BBC Two show, 2015, I think it was, when Alan Kurdi, the Syrian toddler who was drowned in the Med, that hideous story.
Yeah.
The presenter, you know, even if she was just reading out a script, I wouldn't let that script pass. You know, the director shouldn't have, the producer shouldn't have, whatever. She was reading out an intro to an exclusive interview with Alan Kurdi's aunt. And she started the intro with, "If you're a parent, you might find this upsetting."
Oh,
yeah.
God.
Because for the rest of us, a kid drowning in the Med, best news I'd had all week.
Yeah.
I mean,
laugh a minute.
Can you?
Sick.
What brain? I mean, serious. I'm trying to be generous here, but what brain, by using the word brain, what your brain looks at that and kind of goes, yeah, that's fine to pass because that totally says what we want this program to say. It's genuinely shocking, isn't it?
But it's so shocking that you just think, did they really say it? Especially when you've become more aware about things, you think, no, because that's something that we almost joke about now. And when you actually hear someone say it, you're like, what, really?
Yeah.
Or what happens is, I don't know why this just came to mind, because I like watching a lot of like true crime things and documentaries and dramas and all the rest of it. And you'll always get like the policeman or whatever, I don't know, there's someone missing, but then they'll turn around to the crime detective or whoever it is, and they'll go, "Do you have kids?" That's always a classic line in one of those programs. Yeah. And that person will be like, "No," or something. They'll be like, "Well, and I just think, oh God.
A brilliant episode of Enders was ruined the other night by Cindy Bill.
Oh God.
Saying to someone, the returned Cindy Bill saying to someone, "Yeah, but you don't have children, do you?" And it was like, oh, go fuck yourself, Cindy. With respect. Stick this up your duff, Cindy, because it makes me so mad. And it's so lazy.
It's
so lazy.
It's so
Yeah.
lazy. Well, I don't want to. It's another presenter. I don't know if anyway, but anyway, I'm not going to name her. I think she's great, but a lot of things about the menopause. Oh, it's so great, and released a book, and it's just like it's so apparent, isn't it, when you watch these things and you say, yeah, but come on, say it. Oh, you have.
And the next step.
And then there's, I don't know if anyone's been watching that or seen it come up. It's been bloody everywhere this week. My mum, your dad, the dating program.
Well,
Yeah.
And it's all about people dating in midlife, because when
Yeah.
you're in mid, and again, it what's the word? It just assumes that everyone in midlife is a parent.
Yeah. A girlfriend of mine was pitching for something along that to do with that show, and that title was put in the press a long time ago, and then they thought that they might call it something else, like Romance Retreat or something like that. And I said to my friend, I said, when you speak to people at ITV or Channel 5, whatever it got on in the end, do insist that, because I guess they wanted to keep the appealing to the Love Island generation by getting them involved in that. They're the ones setting up the mum or the dad. I've got loads of fantastic young people in my life, I'm sure we all have, that could have set me up. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to be on the show, but do you know what I mean? The point is, they don't have to be your children, but again, you are next. Again, you're not quite acceptable or palatable, and but you're both, what you're saying is so right. If it's not, I don't think normalize is the right word, but it is. If it's not accepted, it's not just an acceptable part of life. And what would be interesting, it wouldn't just change society's view, it would change the view of the people who are childless, because we'd see as what's happened as maybe less tragic. It would be like, okay, that was my journey. That happened, and it goes back to Jodie talking about pronatalism, which it doesn't serve parents, because if the parents aren't feeling the joy they're told they should feel, they feel like they failed, and it doesn't serve people that wanted children, because we feel like we're missing out on the greatest thing on earth. There's a middle ground, but we're not even allowed to face the middle ground, because even by approaching the middle ground, we're starting a war. We're not.
But there's no. So going back to the loose women, I do have.
Listen, you're not going to get on Loose Women now, okay?
But going back to Loose
messed
Women,
that up.
the other thing that it did make me think was, even if they had a panelist, because they're so inclusive and diverse apparently, but even if they did have a panelist who was CNBC, I just couldn't picture it, because 90% of their conversations are, what about when your kids do that? It's all the assumption that everybody has kids, and it's like, people work from home and don't have kids, and also it doesn't matter if working from home or not, you need to have some kind of representation. But when you watch daytime TV as well, you realize that we are very excluded. And then when we speak up, it's like, oh, you're being problematic,
We're an issue.
This is real life, you should just get with the program. This is real life. And it's so insulting, really. And it's not something that I do feel prepared to be quiet about, but it's very difficult to express yourself, because people do just pigeonhole you as in like, you're bitter or sensitive.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I hate that I use that. Why did I use that word against myself?
The thing is also though, I think that's also a normal part of this journey. But I think the problem is that people like to shame us, and we feel, a certain part of shame as part of our journey. Whereas, for example, I don't want to get too much into it, but if other things happened in other people's lives, not to do with kids, but it might be, I don't know, someone might have studied all their life to be, let's just say a doctor. I don't know why I'm saying a doctor, but let's just say they've spent tens and thousands of pounds, 20, 30 years, and they come to the point in their life, they didn't make it. And for some reason, they can't be a doctor. And all their friends are doctors. Everyone tells them how amazing it is. And they're kind of excluded. And if they were to speak up about it, or if they even felt a little bit bitter about it, as would be normal, people would understand that. But with childlessness, no, people are just like, oh, ready to point the finger.
So if we're being ungenerous, and that's totally not in my nature.
No, not at all.
Sure. Can I just say as well, I really am not bitter about this. That was lazy. Me attacking people's laziness earlier. That was lazy of me. And I really annoyed myself that I did that. what was I going to say? Brain fog, it's gone.
I'm generous. I'm
I don't know what I was going to say. I can't remember what I was going to say. It was profound. It was the most amazing thing. It would have changed a few lives, but it's gone.
It will come
Gone
back.
forever. It will come back at 1 a.m. and I'll text you all.
That's right. I'll add it as a comment on the website.
I'll fax you all. I don't know. I just find it. Oh, this is what I was going to say. Do you find the societal take and everything else that we're having to kind of rail against, I just didn't expect it, and it's almost as bad as the grief of not my. I feel like I can't grieve because I'm being too busy having to fight my corner about stuff, and it's like that's why Jodie calls it disenfranchised grief, doesn't it? Because you can't. It's not acknowledged. It's laughed at. It's a joke. It's absolutely not acknowledged. I had someone once say to me, "How do you feel about not having kids now?" And if your kid had just died, it'd be like me. I didn't say this to her, but if her kid had died, and I'd said to her, a year later, "Oh, how do you feel about Derek being dead now?" Do you know what I mean? You would fucking do it. But it's disenfranchised grief, and it's disenfranchised not because it's not taken seriously, but also you can't get to the stage where you try to work it out and see if it's okay and how you feel because you're railing against all the as a mother shit, the hardworking families rhetoric, how the cost of living crisis is affecting families. Oh my Christ, it's affecting everyone. And here's the thing, families will be the ones that will get the help first. It makes me want to explode. Steph, make it stop.
I wish I could, don't you? But like you said,
it's got an award. You make it stop.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Magic wand, like a magic wand.
I can't be the princess because I'm the evil stepmother or the woman who's kidnapping the children.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the problem.
That's
but
right.
I think we've through the conversation we agreed, it's going back to changes that we can't do now. It's going back to changes that need to happen now at primary school and in secondary school, because as you say, with biology and things like this, what they get taught is like, you don't get pregnant, don't fall pregnant, don't fall pregnant. But they never talk about if you don't fall pregnant, or if you don't meet somebody you want to have children with, or you don't do this, or if you don't do that. And because it's just not discussed. We're straight away, we're going down one route from the time we leave school, and that's where we get stuck. But
so we need the decision makers to almost be childless, which sounds so extreme, but you kind of, because the director, whoever, the scriptwriter, whoever let that intro through, that if you're a parent you might find this upsetting. If that was me, that wouldn't have gone through. If it was you two, it wouldn't have gone through. If it was anyone in our chat here, it wouldn't have gone through.
Yeah.
Shall I tell you something now that I found shocking and I did write to the TV about? Is good old Blind Date, classic TV series Blind Date. And it was rerun several years ago now. And I can't, I'm just, you still think about it, you just can't believe it. And they have the question, don't they, that the person has to answer.
Oh no.
And the question was, I want to have children, so are you fertile?
Oh,
okay.
And I just thought, okay, they would have checked that before the person, they were happy to answer it. But if you knew there were problems, would you want to admit to them that you've got problems? Would you know unless you've tried to have a child? But the whole idea that they could actually bring that up on your Saturday evening,
there's life entertainment.
And I wrote to him, and he was just like, yeah, we'll pass it on. Thank you for your comments. And they weren't interested. And I just think, again, it's just, how does that get past these people? And it's because they're parents and they don't see it as being a problem, because they just assume everybody is fertile and they will find the partners and everything will work out sweet and rosy in the end. Because, as you say, we're not seen. And if we are seen, we're seen as the negative person. And who cares about the negative person? We're not bothered about them. They're the villains. So we can ignore them and go down our sweet little rosy path. You know what I mean? It's there's just too many.
Why don't you supply alcohol in these webinars, Steph?
I'll put it on the list for next year.
Just a plan, just an idea for next year. I'm depressed. I think I hate to get faux positive, because I don't believe in that. But I think if we go back to the question of, are we lucky? There is something I mean, it's been devastating, the whole experience for me, and I guess for most people involved in this webinar today. But there is something kind of profound that happens to people that go through this level, I believe. And I think it broadens our hearts and our minds and our take on life. And none of us would ever say anything so stupid as a mother, or you're lucky you don't have kids. You know, my mum died when I was quite young. She was very young. You know, I never, after that, assumed someone had their parents. And never, ever did it. I was a kid and I knew to do that. I learned to do that. So, I mean, so I guess all we have to do is just keep trying to spread the word that we want to spread. And it is joyful to me that, you know, that Shelley's daughter, Ella, you know, is militant on my behalf, on our behalf, and spreads that word. I mean, that's magical, isn't it?
It is magical. I think ironically, maybe the solution to our issue is
Children.
children. Because they are, you know, they are the, you know, the ones
They're
that
the
learn
future.
from it. They are, but, you know, I think that is maybe that is the solution in a really weird way. But just going back to what you said before, Bibi, that yeah, you know, sometimes I think it depends where you are with your journey, but sometimes on some days or in some parts of this journey, the most difficult days are not even really to do with the not having children. Sometimes it is the being socially excluded, being invalidated, all of those difficult feelings, feeling the shame, because there's so many layers to this experience. And of course, you know, the childless grief, you know, we can't escape that. But sometimes it's about so many other things that it's not actually. So I think in a way that sometimes you might be able to work through the childless grief or whatever it is. But, you know, so obviously I work with trauma and I see a lot of things through a kind of trauma-informed lens, as it were. But, you know, being socially excluded, being told consistently from society and from you know, even loved ones, there's something wrong with you, you're not quite accepted. Even that is a form of trauma. That's traumatic.
I was going to ask you, when you said about the trauma stuff, how much of your, I know you can't say because of confidentiality, but I bet there is a proportion of people that see you, or people's issues are around this. It's traumatizing. I've been traumatized by it.
It's trauma. And the thing is, you know, grief in itself is a trauma. You know, trauma
and if
is
it's continued and you can't work through it because of society's take, and I totally agree with you, that it's that whole thing of, it's like the shitty icing on an already crappy cake, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, having to deal not just with the cake, but with everything else. And you're like, are you absolutely kidding me?
Yeah, you know, you're like, okay, you know what? I'll treat myself. I'll go for a pedicure today. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. You're like, oh, for God's sake. Okay, right, I'll make a cup of tea and I'll watch the TV. Loose Women and the Channel 5 thing. You know, it's constant. And sometimes you're like, oh my God, I don't know. You know, I don't want to make it into a joke. But you know, sometimes you think, I actually forgot that I was maybe even upset about the fact that I don't have kids. It's all this other shit that I've got to deal with everywhere, you know, or feeling like invalidated by even like friends and family because they think that, I don't know, you hit a magic number of your age and okay, I think you need to move on with that now. Well, aren't you over that? And you're like, listen, this is a lifetime thing. I'm a layer of diversity, I'll have you know. And I think that's what it is. I think people think it's just a random person that doesn't have kids. I think that's how society sees it. Oh, that's just that woman that doesn't have children. No, it's anyone of any age, any gender, and something. So yeah, self-disclosure. So I have ADHD and things like that. Not that you'd be able to tell from my constant rabbiting, but I did look into stats and I don't know if they're correct or not, but I did see something like, you know, 3 to 4% of UK adults have ADHD or something like that. And I thought, isn't it interesting that we talk so much about those things? There's probably more, okay, you know, who knows? But then nearly 20% around the world, even sometimes it's 1 in 4, don't have children. What an enormous number. Yes, not everyone is childless, but in comparison, but we're not talking about that. But we are talking about 3 and 4%, which is still very important.
Because when we talk, I totally hear you. And because when we talk about it, some way we're making people that do have children
Yeah.
And that's not allowed. And that's the thing. The thing that gets me now is I've been a lifelong Labour supporter, and I'm like, how do I vote for a party that sets how is it they've said it recently? Oh, hang on, I've written it down. Let me find it. Oh no, it's not there. It's not there. It's not there. It's something like they're building futures for for families.
God, that's the point.
And they were the party of the family. They rebranded as party of the family, and now they're building futures for families.
Nice.
Now, I imagine there's been some, focus group that's decided, use the word families. It's really sexy, and it gets the votes in. It makes me so angry. Tangam Debonair tweeted some footage of her in the house talking about something, blah, 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 and she talked about families. So I tweeted her and just said, single childless people are affected too by this, and she replied and she said, oh no, I know, thank you for the reminder. She said, but I couldn't, it's a matter of time there, so you can't really mention everyone. And I went back with, well, here's the crazy, if you use the word people, that includes everyone. Shorter than the word families. How about that? Don't have to mention everyone, just say the word people. So I'm in a situation now, I don't have a family of my own. I don't think I have a political family, because I don't, I find it really hard to vote for people that don't think I exist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was the other thing in lockdown, wasn't it? It was, the daily updates, which was about, people in old people's homes and they can't have their family to visit. And well, anyway, it was all about family and parents and grandparents and grandchildren. It was just like, oh, for God's sake, I'm already at home, locked in this hellhole. Which after a while you're like, oh, I'm going mad. I was actually in Earl's Court, like on a motorway. I can't complain though. I loved my flat, but I'm talking about the emotional thing, obviously. And then you got that every day. The national update, which unites everyone. Even if it's just a load of crap. I don't want to go into conspiracy theories, but you then got that because you're like, even the clapping out the windows. Well, I live in London, so it's a bit different. So I went to the window every Wednesday or Thursday. I was like, yay! And there was like no one. I was like, oh, gonna clap anyway. After the update where they were like, families, and it was like, yeah, I don't know. I think we're all just going back to what you said as well before. We are, so many of us, and of course we're all human, so not everyone, but so many of us can see things from a different point of view, and just a lot of people can't as well. And I think that's what it is. A lot of these people that do say the things like, oh, you're lucky to not have kids, there's only going to ever be a certain amount of people that we're able to get through to for anything in life. And sometimes it's not worth, I think, expending all our energy trying to explain things to people that they're just not going to get it. So I think sometimes we have to cut our losses, and things like childlessness, bringing childless people together and raising awareness for loved ones or people that, in the medical profession or therapists or anyone that wants to listen. For the other people that are just never going to get it, that's kind of a wasted energy. There'll always be a proportion of people like that, aren't there?
I think you're right. You are right. But I almost feel like it's letting them not get away with it, because it feels like accepted bigotry.
Absolutely.
Every other minority, you're not allowed to say this.
No. Well, I think there'll always be people that have an opinion and think, for example, that certain things don't exist, when it's like, well, it's very clear it does exist. But I think, we already have so much stuff to deal with. I think maybe working on something like, getting public recognition, which Steph did as well yesterday as well. And there's bits and other pieces as well. I think that's like incredible. But, for the random people, let's say, even some of them might be our friends, but for those people that constantly keep misunderstanding or invalidating us, I think we need to cut our losses and just kind of say, you know what, they're just not going to get it. So we're not letting them get away with it, but I just almost kind of thinking, I'm going to spend my time, talking to people who do get it or who want to listen, because those people are never going to. Maybe for other things as well. I don't know.
I think we do have to, at the end of the day, protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Because there is only so much we can do. There is only so much some people are willing to listen or to change. Yeah. And bizarrely, I think it is, we've said it, it's about the kids. It's about the next lot of generation. And it's so much more open-minded. And somebody I think said, you know, we should be talking to every 10-year-old out there. And if we talk there, it's changing that mindset, because if their parents are already stuck in the rut, we could be banging our head against a brick wall and not getting anywhere. And it is when you can talk out. But if they're not listening and they glaze over or they change the subject, save your breath, save your energy, save your emotions, because they're not worth it. Because you've got to prioritize your own self-care. And sometimes just say, sod the rest of them. They're just, you know, I'll let it wash over my head, go in one ear, out the other ear, and not let it actually affect me inside, because it is about.
Can you move on from those people, though?
I think sometimes you have to. And if you can't, if you want them in your life, then you've got to take them on the life, but understand that before you meet them, before you talk to them, you just put up a barrier and just go, okay, it's a 5 minutes, fair enough. But after that, I'm not letting them get to me, because if they affect you that much, are they worth it?
Yeah.
Are they worth it? Because who's worth more, them or you? Because if your sanity is being broken down and being played with by their words and lack of actions, or their actions that hurt, what do we gain from them in our life? And there's nothing there, and they're just draining us.
Well, yeah, that's so.
What is the point?
Yeah, what's the point? Because there's a.
And it's horrible to make those breaks. Some people, do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's family and friends, but you maybe can limit yourself, but you've got to put your barriers up to protect yourself, because we know we can't change everyone. We're witnessing that. We've said that time and time again in this conversation. We can't change everybody.
It almost feels like there should be legislation, and I know that's a ridiculous thing to say, but there feels like there's something. Is it hate speech? Do you know what I mean? I mean, you know, I hate it, and it feels hateful towards me, and it's lessening, and it's saying, and it's prejudiced against me, and it's, you know, I mean, my vote matters less than my friends' children, who maybe are not even of voting age. I mean, it is an extraordinary situation, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Again, I think it's time for things to change, and we all know nothing changes quickly, especially when it comes to
it's marginalisation. Someone's put in our chat.
Yeah, well, we are the biggest growing hidden minority in this world.
It's
you know,
it's absolutely. And then when I'm saying about, you know, cutting our losses with some people, I definitely don't mean like lawmakers and people like that, by the way.
No,
I just mean, you know, sometimes it is friends that you kind of move on from, or whatever it is. I definitely mean that. I think it's the same, you know, when you're in, and I know that, I think Helen mentioned it in the chat as well, and it was something that I was thinking about as well. So snap, but in abusive relationships, you know, when we're trying to, because I still work with people healing from abusive relationships, but, you know, constantly trying to explain to someone why something is upsetting when it's abusive. And the thing is, with childlessness, it might not be that people are being intentionally trying to be abusive, but it's that same kind of thing of like, how many times do I need to explain why this is upsetting when you're, you know, like when you're in an abusive relationship? By the way, you know, we were just saying about there was this a quote that came to mind, which I've always been like, oh, I don't know about that, but I think it's really relevant from what we were just talking about. And it's Rumi, and it's the cure for the pain is in the pain. You know, we were just talking about the
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, for the cure for the pain. Yeah, but that's yeah. Anyway,
the pain's in the pain.
Because I hate to do this, because I think we could chat all night.
I know.
Don't you dare shut us down.
I'm going to shut you down. We can carry on chatting when we start recording. Oh no! First of all, you want alcohol. Now you're telling me to not shut you down. I'm in trouble, people. I'm in real trouble. But no, I'm going to have to do that for now, unfortunately. But it has been truly an amazing conversation. I've loved that. I knew you two would just be.
It's so good to meet you, Julie.
I could just
good to meet you too.
Come in now and again. So thank you to everybody who's come tonight. Thank you to you two for making it such an interesting conversation. And
welcome. Thank you, award winner.
Yeah.
I wish there was a simple answer. I think we all wish there was a simple answer, but I think the main outcome of this is, are we lucky? In some small aspects we might see them, but overall no, because at the end of the day, no matter how many perks we might have, we'd have still rather had those children in our lives. And it's as simple as that, isn't it? So there's luck and there's being unlucky, and But I really wish everybody finds some fine aspects of their life that they do feel lucky in, and hold on to that and take that forward.
We've got more chance of that because of what that pain has done to us and how we've moved our minds to cope with that. So I actually think we have, and we're very lucky that we've all got World Childless Week, and then we've got these platforms because these didn't exist before. And to everyone in the comments, thank you so much. I didn't read many. I was like that. Oh,
no, I have no chance to read. I'm going to read them in a minute.
But
so
thank you.
So thank you again, ladies, and we shall see you on the other side. Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.